Okay, so what we have here is a Stihl MS460, and the other day dropped off the back of the truck, and as you can see, broke the rear handle off. These things are integral. Here's the new part for a 460 laying here. Part number from Stihl is 1128-350-0850. Been told by a competent steel mechanic that if you try to get the knockoff Chinese version, it is not going to fit. You're going to waste hours and hours and hours trying to get it to fit. What these things do, naturally your handle assembly, but they go plumb all the way back up into the front side. This is an 028, this is a 460, so naturally they're made a little differently. Concept is still the same. It holds your tank, holds your carburetor in place, and basically is the entire back half of your saw. This little puppy was about 140 something bucks. As you can see, I've already got it taken apart. I'll walk you through the process of putting it all back together. So normally, and I've also got it all cleaned up inside here. So these guys, T25 Torx is pretty much what it takes to take it apart, along with a Phillips head screw. Most all your caps where your screws for the actual bushings and all are going to have these little caps in place. So if you open it, look at the side of your saw, you're going to find these caps in there. What's underneath is just standard old T25 Torx. So let's get going. The actual switch for shutting it off is located kind of over here in the corner. The wires, it's going to set back up in here with a little Phillips screw, or a little Phillips or flathead screw that sticks into the side. Once you get it all taken apart, you're going to be looking at two little clips. The green and white or yellow wire goes on top and black wire goes on the bottom. You're going to have to remove these to fish it back through and then ultimately fish it through the new part. There are also two different sizes, so it kind of helps to keep from screwing it up. The rubber plug, quick little push with the flathead, get it popped all the way through. That'll eliminate the old guy, the old broken one, out of the mixture, and allow you to start swinging this new one in place here. Shake a little more dirt out. Figure out where that guy came from. Probably right down in there. The old bushings off the old portion of the saw. These will go up in the very front edge. The left side is smaller than the right side. And they're basically going to fit right up in here in the front. Other than that, it just kind of swings into place. But as with anything new versus what's been wore in for a while, it's probably not going to go in place quite the way we'd like it to. The steel mechanic shop warned me this was going to be kind of an involved process. I've already changed out cylinder heads before. This one does have a NWP piston assembly, the big bore kit from Bailey's. It added some top into it, but without having another old 460 to compare it to, it's a little hard to really say one way or the other. I needed a piston, didn't feel like going through steel at the time, as I'd gotten a hold of some gas that was not mixed properly. I didn't mix it, somebody else did. and probably burned up my cylinder. So hence was the need to replace the cylinder about 6-7 years ago. I can say it's been running quite well ever since. Recently had to rebuild the carburetor as I got a hold of a piece of sawdust that made it past the air ports and blockers in the carburetor housing and made it up into the diaphragm area. You can find two holes in here, one on the left side for the actual wires to pull through. This other one is going to be where your breather line for your crankcase comes in from. And then of course naturally this guy here is going to be your fuel line, the green, and the old one is laying over there, which is a black one originally. See if we're ready before I can get this thing slide up into place yet. Important to kind of leave yourself just enough room to get your fingers in here. It's going to get real tight really quickly, especially with that other line. Forceps will help quite a bit. Get things to line up and kind of get pushed through. Make sure that you don't pull it out the other side of the crankcase as well. I'm going to pull those wires through. Next we got to get the actual carburetor boot pulled through. And that'll allow us to help get it slid firmly into position. Carburetor boot is attached to the cylinder head with a band clamp, so you don't really have to worry too much about pulling it off if you're still dealing with a factory seal. But up here in the carb housing area, it's not. It's actually held in with a clip, like a tension clip. Kind of gentle on this boot. It's not something I really want to be making the 100-mile trek to the Stihl dealer to find. Once you get those guys through, you can now kind of come up here to the front and make sure she's lined up. And go ahead and thread in one or two of the bolts. This will kind of lock this thing in position. Let you start working the rest of it over. This is the little clip I'm talking about. This gets inserted down into your actual carburetor boot, and it kind of acts as a locking clamp. The two of these rest inside of each other, and that's what helps to hold your actual carburetor boot into place. Of course, you don't want to drop it down inside the tube. It really isn't going to go in. It just sort of sits on the outside. It acts as a plug or a stiffener for a good solid seal. Again, you don't want to bring any of the dirt from the old part into the new part, because it'll start dropping it down the intake of your saw. It's kind of how the two fit together, just like that. Now, go ahead and slide your carburetor on. First, we better make sure that we've got that breather boot all the way through. It's just going to allow more dirt to get up in there. I think we're good. Yep, there's the wings on either side. Make sure your wires are tucked up out of the way. There's a little slot on the side that they're going to go in through. And just for right now, I'll tuck them back in here behind. Make sure to clean off the edge of the carburetor. Make sure there's no trash or junk down inside of it. This boot up here actually fits towards the top because it's going to catch into the actual air cleaner assembly. That's where I had a piece of sawdust to get past all this and get in here, and it was holding my float open a few months ago, and that's where I had to actually go into the carb and make sure, pretty much rebuild the carburetor. These little Walbro carbs are pretty sweet and simple to rebuild, but once I was done with it, I could not get the screws set quite right. And so I ended up taking it to the chainsaw shop, and they dialed it in the rest of the way for me. I don't have a tachometer, so that was kind of one of the drawbacks. this up. We've got another one up here that we're going to go ahead and put the back into. Again, in these holes on the side, you're going to find these plastic plugs. All they do is just plug into the actual gasket itself. Even underneath here, you're going to find one. So don't be fooled. This is not part of your oil tank, and this is not part of your gas tank. Gas tank's back here. All they are is just plastic plugs to keep the crap out of those screws. This one's going to set in. There's a little hook right here. And once you get it set in place, the switch has to be in this position because it rocks back and forth and trips the actual latch itself. There's a little spring in there that holds a little contact and a little trigger piece here goes with the actual trigger. I'll get into that later because mine is pretty busted up and there's a few parts missing, so I still need to go round up some pieces for that. But it just sort of snaps into place. It can be a little bit of a bear at first, but you got to get this guy in back behind this trip on the carburetor. So the carburetor's probably going to spring out a little bit. Yeah, snap. Back to the side. Little grooves down here in the bottom. They actually ride on the grooves here on this lip. That'll line you up to get that screw in the right spot. Again, just snap her in. Been a long time since I had one tore down this far. Ouch. And like I said, some of the parts on mine are broken, so it's kind of one of them deals that not everything goes back where it's supposed to go. Function check. Yeah, that's what I thought. The breather hose just walked its way out. This little guy is always kind of fun. Get it in here. The rod actually has to rotate up and through. Little hole back there. You might be able to see it, and that's where that rod's got to rotate into. It allows it to move the throttle trigger. To actually rest where they're supposed to be for your carburetor. Like I said, I'm no good at tuning the actual carbs themselves, so I'll get them close, do what I can, and then probably take them to my local Stihl shop, let them work on them from there. Alright. Trigger time. Some of the parts on the safety lever in this trigger are broke, so I'll do the best I can to put it back together for now, but I've got to go find a few more parts for it. Basically, there's just a pin in here that you can get the pin to move or walk it out one way or the other. Don't really want to go either. punch, take it all the way through and capture your spring. The spring's not in any danger of going anywhere, but it's just a good habit to get into. That way you can use it pulling some things out as an assembly and work them from there. Like I said, the front half of my trigger is broken off. There's the safety bar on top, and it rests in here in that groove. But being the front half of my triggers broke off, I need to go get one. There should be an extra section in here that'll trigger a lot of that. Shouldn't really have to beat on it any. It should just pretty well slide on in. The last little bit. Just get it buried in. The rod sits up. Just kind of slides in or snaps in. Top part of that safety piece has a little wing on the side that captures this return spring. It sort of holds all that mess together. Like I said, it sort of sets right in there. And there should be another portion on here that keeps this safety in place. That way you have to have the safety depressed in order to actually pull the trigger. But again, mine's kind of broke right now. I need to go order the parts for that. I didn't realize how busted they were until I got into this thing. Top portion is this guy right here. There's a screw on the bottom of it that holds it all together. And I order the parts for the safety catch and all. I'll probably order a whole nother top part itself. So that's pretty much what holds that together through there. Gets in place. And we get that screw to go in from the underside without sending the whole mountain loose. And it's just an old Phillips screw or a flathead as well. Actually, it's a Torx underneath the sawdust, but a flathead as well. Stihl, basically, some of them guys say that you can take the entire saw apart with the scrunch tool. Partially true, partially not. If you're working on it in the woods, then yes, the scrunch is your friend. But if you bust a head or do like I did here, it kind of gets to be a bit of a mess from that point forward if you don't have the proper tools to work with. Alright, function check, choke is working, choke shut, squeeze the trigger. That's in place. Okay, this little old rubber boot right there needs to stay in place. Make sure it's sandwiched up against that thing quite nicely. Again, make sure your carburetor is kind of pushed down again. Double check your fuel line is put in over here in the corner. And it's your vacuum line. Crankcase breather line hasn't got out of whack in there anywhere. Throttle assembly, rod and everything's going to work its way through this slot right here. I better have your choke down at the same time in order to get it pushed in there. And again, you don't want to dislodge any dirt and get it back up in there. It kind of holds everything in place. Now your actual carburetor throat can go on, and that sort of sandwiches everything together. there's a little tab in there. It sort of clips into place. You want to make sure this surface is also clean before you bolt it into place. Make sure there's nothing in the actual throat of the carburetor itself. Carburetor throat will go on, the upper portion will go to the up position. Reason being, there's a little guy right here. It says top, so you know it's idiot proof. This slides on. There's a little catch right here that will snap over top of the lip of this thing. First, make sure that's in good and tight and good location. 8mm nuts. This is why you want your choke flap shut, because if you drop that and it goes down the carburetor, you're going to be fishing it out. Try to do them equally. This is going to be pulling everything back down into place. You don't want to get it whoppy-jawed or out of whack. You don't want your shut-off wires getting caught in back there. You dang sure don't want to have a gap in the back where sawdust and everything can be getting down in there. It'll run for a little while, but it won't last terribly long. Alright. Little dust shield. You take these off to make sure the filter doesn't knock anything down in. Again, there's your shield. My filter is pretty dirty. I haven't had a chance to really clean it out. But then your filter will go back on. Right there. Of course, your top cap will fit back into place. On these older ones, it's kind of nice because the whole air cleaner assembly and housing and all fits in the exterior, and so you don't have to take the main body of the saw apart to do this. So that's why a lot of these guys, they love these old ones, because this is back before the emission stuff started getting in. They're really just good old saws. This one here was actually manufactured in 2005. Was in North Carolina somewhere, and went through a tree trimming company for a long time. They ran it. They finally traded it in on another saw. The second-hand guy got a hold of it. He worked it out for a little while, and then my brother found it on like Craigslist ad, and told me about it. I gave him the money and bought it at that point. If you're into Stihl saws, right up here in the very front is a serial number. Probably not going to be able to see this one for the clarity, but you know, 165, it'll start, and it'll have multi-digit number right up here on this front bar clasp section right there. Looks good. If you find that number, call your Stihl dealer. They can look it up. It's the same as an engine serial number for a Cummins or something. I got a couple more plugs to put back in on this thing. I still got to put the bar on. The bar is going to bolt in here with these two. And it's going to wrap around over here and bolt in down here in the bottom. Again, just the standard old T25 Torx bolts. So, other than that, we'll cut her short. That's how it goes back together.